hills, barley fields, and fertile land. This is Moray, famous for its whisky, undiscovered by the big touristic crowds. Moray's rich sandy soils provide good arable and pasture land for farmers and growers. But also in this part of the world, farmers are facing a multitude of agricultural and environmental challenges such as flooding, climate change, wind erosion, decreasing farm income, and changing agricultural policies. But even though life in rural Scotland is not always easy, new projects arise. In this film, we will give you an insight into the life of a few of the Moray farmers. We'll show how Moray is transitioning towards more environmentally friendly agricultural production methods and a local food supply chain, and what that can look like. Lynn Batten is doing a PhD on the financial situation of agricultural land in Scotland. As part of her PhD research, she organised workshops for farmers and the community to talk about different aspects of the local food supply in Moray. She lives in Moray and has a personal passion for growing and farming.
It's a miracle that from a seed that is so small and something comes out of it that you can eat. I've always loved going to markets and just finding food that is local and that I can eat at home and that I can cook at home. I love having a conversation with the people who grow the food, who have reared the animal that I'm eating or have grown the cucumber that I'm eating. I'm organising 2 workshops, one in Dufton and one in Forres, about Moray's good food system, but also especially about the transition and a just transition within that good food system. What is going on right now when it comes to producers' issues, when it comes to subsidy issues, and when it comes to supply chain issues in the region. But especially like how are we transitioning to what type of more local and environmentally friendly food system and what is needed to progress that transition more. I'm organising these workshops with Kerry McInnes, Just Transition Research Fellow at UHI Moray, who has much experience in working with various local food initiatives in Moray, as well as with Maria de Lima, who's an artist in residence of the Talbot Rice Gallery from Glasgow. She has much experience in creating more meaningful conversations in community engagement workshops.
From the Moray Firth, we follow the River Spey upstream along the beautiful lush green glen until we reach Aberlour. Just outside this village is the base of Elchie's Goat Farm, a lively, family-run small business.
I'm Julie from Elchie's Goat Farm. We run around 200 to 300 meat goats. We've got alpacas and sheep. Meat is our primary thing. You're being a naughty boy. On top of the meat, we also process our own wool and we make blankets and sheepskins and goat skins and felted tops. Yeah, I know, I'm going to bring him back. You shouldn't have lost him in the first place, should you? We've just got a new butchery on the farm and we hope to have that up and running for the middle of July. So, yeah, escaping. We just keep them in. So these are the 2 sisters, Swimming Susan and Sally.
I'd also say, if you think about your plate, the food you've got, the protein.
During these workshops, we are going into conversation with producers, with farmers, with local shop owners, and with the general community who have a general interest in the agro-food sector. We will then ask the participants to reflect on their own situation and their own food system. So looking at, okay, what kind of challenges or opportunities do you see in the Moray region? And we're going to use a sort of vision exercise called The River, in which we're going to ask the participants to draw a transitional river to show what kind of tributaries there are, and then flow, like making sure that river flows, but what kind of rocks or barriers are there in that river to be able to come out to the sea, and the sea then represents like your just and sustainable and unique and ideal food system that you would like to see in the Moray region.
Question, are you doing that for yourself? Yeah. Or are you doing that to feed other people? No.
Further south, near Dufftown, we find the Cabrach, a remote area on higher grounds just north of the Cairngorms National Park. In the middle sits Inverharach Farm. The Cabrach used to be a vivid community, but suffered much depopulation due to wars and displacement. Now, only a tenth of the original population remains. The Cabrach Trust was founded to reverse the decline and to renew the area with ambitious, sustainable projects. The Trust works together with locals who have been living in the area for decades.
Well, I'm Derek McBain here, and I'm a tenant farmer here for Inverharach, one of the farms that we farm here in the Cabrach. So it's a livestock farm, and we've still grow some barley as well for the distillery. So it's a new thing that we've started.
Over here we have, I suppose, what we describe as the centrepiece of our regeneration master plan. This is to create a working distillery in the Cabrach. The Cabrach used to have a roaring whisky industry. 3 legal distilleries operated in the Cabrach in the early 1800s, but all came to a close one at a time by the mid-1800s. But across the last hundreds of years, there's been a rich illicit whisky industry here as well. This was a high place, quite remote from kind of more accessible Speyside. So the Cabrach was a hotbed for illicit distilling for hundreds and hundreds of years. So with the development over here, we're looking to bring back the whisky story. We're looking to bring back legal production of whisky to the Cabrach. But most importantly, we're looking to create the economic lungs for our regeneration vision. Permanent employment, a visitor destination, and in years to come, significant profits that will fuel our regeneration objectives for decades to come.
Looking in particular in the Murray region, what are we doing here? Why is it so difficult to access local produce? Why is it so difficult for farmers to sell local produce? How can we make a better connected supply chain? And we can really see in our entire food system that it's broken. There are a couple of really big advantages for growing in Murray. One of them is the climate. We have excellent soil, one of the best in Scotland. And there is a good community hub as well that really shows interest in local food and local farming practices. And there have been some excellent examples of good practices and local food economy that is going on here in Murray, such as local food shops and local producers. And I think that growing that and scaling that up would be extremely beneficial for the region.
If the next generation is not interested, either the tenancy gets given up or the farm comes up for sale.
Linkwood Farms is the biggest farm we visit. It is based near Elgin and run by a young 5th generation ambitious farmer. He is transitioning to more regenerative agricultural practices by experimenting with cover crops, low tillage and direct sowing.
I'm Ewan Robertson. I'm farm manager of Linkwood Farms in Elgin. We're an arable farm, farming around 2,000 acres across 3 locations. We mainly grow spring barley for malting, but we also grow feed barley, feed wheat and oilseed rape. We recently joined the Murray Farm Cluster, which is a group of farmers which combined land areas about 16,500 acres. And the idea is that we all think together and create wildlife corridors between our lands for nature to restore itself in corridors rather than being quite so sporadic across the county.
The Murray Farm Cluster just started and has already 14 farmers on board, covering 6,600 hectares on the Lake of Murray. Charlie Davis is the land manager for the farm cluster.
I think the cluster will hopefully achieve all sorts of things. I think primarily we want it to improve the relationships and the communications between farmers in the area. But I also think that it has the potential to be a pioneering cluster, showing that cluster farms can work in productive arable landscape. They're quite often in an upland, less intensive landscape for farming, that it works within this context, and that those farmers are building a reputation for being able to deliver public goods as trusted operators, and that'll put them in a better position to be able to access funding in the future. I think this is a good first step. We're actually not asking for any land use change particularly. We're not pulling a lot of land out of production. We're looking at the mitigations we can do in the kind of gaps between farmed areas to create more climate resilience. One of the big things in this area is windblow topsoil, because the land is so light, and that's a very tangible climate reaction that people are seeing. And there's also quite a lot of conversation around the impact of the more extreme weather on the river systems. I think as we move forward, we'll start to think more about other measures that can be part of making those farm businesses more resilient, changing the way that we farm maybe, thinking about ways in which we can farm in a less intensive way that means that we're protecting the soil and protecting the biodiversity within that area. But there are also lots of other things. One of the big things that we want to look into is invasive species management and having a joined up approach to invasive species management. And I think that'll be a huge thing for us to get our teeth into in the future.
Today we're planting green cover. So this field was too wet to get a crop of spring barley into the ground, so we decided we were going to put a green cover in. It's a mixture of 3 or 4 different clovers and a radish, which the radish in particular has a really deep taproot, which will go down deep into the soil, break it up and encourage the water to drain more easily. It protects the soil from the summer, hopefully adding some organic matter into the soil, and then we should get a much better crop planted in September. This field will be going into winter wheat next year. This is the first time we've tried a summer cover. Normally it's more cost effective to grow a cash crop, wheat or barley, but this year the conditions just weren't right, so we had to think of an alternative. This soil in particular is really heavy clay. If it dries out too much, it goes rock solid and you struggle to get seed to germinate. But if it's too wet, it just smears and slidey and you can't get a tractor up and down the field. So if the conditions aren't right, it's just not worth putting a seed in the ground. However, if we do get it right, this is really good, nutritious soil. It will grow a good crop.
This is Open Farm Sunday. It's a national event. It's organised once a year, always about the first couple of weeks in June. And it's where farmers open their farms up to the public. We let them in and try and explain what we do and why we do it. Education is very important. I think people need to understand where their meat comes from. And they also need to understand the part of the farmer as part of the community. 3 times a day we need a farmer, and I know that's a very well spoken comment, but it is true, absolutely. 3 times a day we need a farmer to provide us with the food that we eat. As a farmer in Murray who farms livestock, we have a lot of problems up here in the fact that there are so few abattoirs that we're lucky in the fact our abattoir is only 25 miles down the road. I can drive my animals 300 miles over the border and I can have them slaughtered at about 25% of the costs that I'm having to pay up here for the abattoir. So I'm faced with a financial situation of, do I save money and drive my animals over the border? Do I want to take animal welfare into account and just drive them 25 miles down the road and consider that their welfare is more important to me? Or do I want to take an environmental issue, in which case it's going to be, I'm going to put less carbon and CO2 into the atmosphere by driving to the local abattoir than if I drive 300 miles over the border. However, that's losing me around about 11,500 a year. So, for a farmer to survive, we also have to take in all these aspects as to how we're going to do it.
Well, plenty of challenges. The weather's one of them. The weather's the worst thing that we have probably up here because we're so high up, and we've got, it's a long winter up here, quite a short summer, especially when it's weather like this, and we've got quite a short window here to grow crops and fodder for the animals to feed them all winter with. So it's a challenge.
So a really important part of the Cabrich Distillery project is, one, delivering it in harmony with the Cabrich's fragile environment, but two, supporting local sustainable permanent employment and making sure that we have this really intimate supply chain that sits around the distillery. So growing home barley at Inverharrick Farm, which we've just started doing in the last couple of years with our farmer Derek, making sure that all of our co-products from distillation support creation of green energy, so we'll be sent down to Dufton, 6 miles down the road. We'll support anaerobic digestion, so again our input energy source to the distillery will be green gas, making sure that we continue to manage Inverharrick Farm in a sustainable way as well, so it supports the visitor destination, it supports barley, it supports sheep grazing, but it also supports well-being in the form of our nature trails and the tree planting that we're doing along the River Devon.
It's a new thing for us. This will be the second year we've grown barley in the fields down here, and there's just so many fields we can grow barley on in the Carbery here because it's the steepness of the ground's one thing, and also a lot of the soil here is suited for growing barley up here. So we've chosen a few of the lower lying fields that we can grow barley on. It's a good idea. We're hopefully going to, in conjunction with the Trust, we'll hopefully put out to other farmers in the area if they want to grow barley to supply the distillery in the future. So that's another idea that goes along with things.
A major part of what we're doing as a team at the Cabrich Trust is trying to be active partners, not just with people within the Cabrich, but people across the surrounding areas. So engaging with sessions like the workshops has been invaluable in terms of shared learning, in terms of taking inspiration and insights from others, but also sharing what we are doing here at Inverharrick as we continue to try and do our very best by this place. My colleague Craig, for example, took a great deal from attending the workshop in Dufton. The opportunity and exposure to spend time with peers and like-minded others is invaluable and something that the Trust is trying to do more and more often, both locally, regionally and nationally.
Very little. And Tesco's would be luxury for them.
Yeah.
So fuel poverty combined with food poverty is a big...
Sometimes where the kids are growing food, where they're cooking it, where they're serving it to each other, where they're having social interaction, but it's pretty rare.
I'm hoping that the quality of that product is outweighs the cost of it.
That's what I'm interested in, but I'm wanting to take it to the next stage, regenerative farming, so reducing the amount of artificial chemicals and fertilizers.
I want to hear more about people, all the people, the power of the people as a whole.
Food is a health issue. So if we say this is a national health issue, and health money goes in preventative. So if we're reducing the levels of skin issues, because our food is coming in a different way.
That's one of the reasons that people purchase cheap, low quality food in the supermarket, is because that is what's available and that is presented as food, whereas actually it is not food.
We don't just have to look at the UK, there's loads of things in Europe in terms of cooperative models that we could be adopting.
Moray Council could manage that without that. The challenges that farmers face when producing food or when selling local produce in a local region is because there is a system that is underlying these challenges, and that system is inherently flawed when it comes to creating a local food economy, because the focus is very much about how do we grow food and how do we export that food. So how do we extract the value of that food outside of the region? Being part of that extractive economy obviously doesn't bring any of that financial benefit back into the region. And so what we really need to talk about is not just about how we are producing food, but how do we have ownership over means of production. So this is ownership over the supply chain locally, but also ownership over land, and having secure rights of making decisions on that land.
Well, the future of the farming here, along with the Trust here, which are doing a good job to kind of keep the Carbery going, But the future of farming here depends on young folk coming into the industry again, really. Up in the Carbery here, you have to be kind of a family outfit to survive here, because, you know, to employ somebody to come in to work with you, you kind of get them to, we get seasonal help to come in to give us a hand at the lambing time, but at other times of the year, you struggle to get folk that are dedicated to looking after livestock. You'll get plenty of folk maybe for tractor work and that, but for livestock, sheep and cattle work, it's a struggle.
I think it is challenging. There is no easy solution, and what is a solution in Moray is not necessarily a solution in Edinburgh or any other part. It has to be considered as part of the environment you are in at the time. The future is, challenging, but I think I'm optimistic. Farmers wouldn't be farming if they weren't optimistic. It doesn't matter how bad the day gets as a farmer, you've still got to get up and feed.
This is one of the problems with organic or regenerative agriculture, is this sterile brome, and it just creeps into the field and outcompetes the crop you're trying to grow. So it's one of the main reasons for not doing it. It's very difficult to control without chemicals. There are ways and means of doing it, and I'm slowly figuring that out, but you can see already that it's becoming a problem. We've only been min-tilling this ground for about 3 or 4 years. I love the challenge. I want to figure out ways to be as eco-friendly and to grow the best crops as cheaply and as well as possible, but sometimes the old farmers have a bit of logic in them. They've done things for a reason. We'll figure it out, I guess.